Well, it's about that time, ladies and gentlemen. Spring training games start today, and it's time to start talking MLB futures with Anthony Maglioka. Listen, Amags, we've got. I'm really excited. You maybe you have the countdown in your head in terms of like opening day, but we got spring training starting today, and I want to ask you from a storyline standpoint, what's coming to mind going into these spring training games?
Well, first and foremost, it would be just to stay healthy. I think that's the major thing with spring training always. And that was kind of the one piece I was going to lead off with as my storyline for spring training here is just the amount of injuries we've either already seen to guys like Corbin Carroll, Spencer Schwellenbach, or guys that we know are rehabbing. They're going to be coming back at some point. Elite aces like Zach Wheeler, Garrett Cole. You also have Corbin Burns and Justin Steele coming back, mid-season. So there's a lot to watch with injuries, but we've just got to keep these guys healthy. That's the main thing. Get your at-bats in, get your work in, see live pitching. I know everyone loves to bet on baseball, and when it gets, it comes back and it's the first game, you're like, wow, I got to get some bets in. But definitely take it a little bit easy through spring training and some of the bets that you're going to make.
Definitely advocate for responsible betting, especially spring training, things like that. We want to make sure we're careful with our bankroll. So I want to ask you before we get into some futures. I mean, a lot of the conversation, at least the conversation that I've seen, has pertained to potential lockout next year. Is that anything? I mean, as it pertains to this year, is that anything you're really considering one way or the other? And do you have any thoughts on a potential lockout?
I think it's more of just like kind of a talking point, truthfully. And I think when you look at the storylines for this year, the major storylines, I'm looking more at the ABS factor, that replay system that they're instituting now, allowing for pitchers, batters, the catcher, the team to challenge the umpire's call. I think that is going to make a huge difference, not only in the game of baseball, but actually to the betting community as well. Anyone that's betting on strikeouts, this is a big deal. When how many times have we complained about a strike call not going our way, something that was right in the heart of the zone, or something that was a terrible call that struck our hitter out and we had a hitter prop. So I think that will be a much larger storyline this year, and how that goes rather than the lockout. Look, the lockout probably is going to happen. It is what it is, but I think everyone's already kind of feeling that, and we're all just pushing those emotions off till after the season.
All right, let's get into some futures this season. Talk to me about the AL West because I want to get into division futures and your favorite division future. It's got a plus number in front of it, like most of these do. It's on the Seattle Mariners.
It is, and look, if you don't want to, if you want to bet like a longer shot in any of these divisions and have some fun, I totally get it. I think the AL East will be really competitive. I think there's some good numbers in there on the Orioles, the Red Sox. Shout out to my buddy Brian. I told him I'd mention the Red Sox. I think that there's other plays that you could make, but if you want just my stone cold, my favorite pick here, it's going to be the Seattle Mariners to win the West. I think that there's a massive drop off for the Astros. And look, even if the Texas Rangers do battle back from what we saw last year, they improved. They got Mackenzie Gore. They got some other pieces and bats. I just don't love the makeup of their team. I mean, we saw already Corey Seager give a very unpalatable interview. I did not like his vibes and everything, talking about Marcus Simeon and his relationship with him. He seems very standoffish. I just don't love the vibes of that locker room. I think at some point something goes awry there. And I just think the Mariners are far too good in too many areas. Look, yes, they lost Eugenio Suarez, but when you look at how he actually played for them in just over 50 games, he hit under 200. He barely hit, I think it was 11, 12, 13 home runs somewhere in there. So barely got into double digits. It wasn't like he was this big 4 WAR player that they're now losing from the lineup. He had a .3 WAR when he joined the Mariners and after that. So I get that's a big bat to lose, but I think bringing Brendan Donovan in, continuing to have one of the best, if not the best rotations in baseball, that has to be my favorite pick to win the West at plus money. I think the plus number probably disappears rather quickly, and that's why I like this one. All the projections that I look at have at least a 52 or so % chance of them winning this division, and at this number that already screams value. So I love it.
Yeah, the Mariners. I mean, maybe the Astros and Rangers, they follow closely behind, and then there's a huge drop off. But like you said, you think there's a big gap between the Mariners and then the Astros and Rangers. Now, let's move this forward on Seattle because when we're talking about an AL winner, are you willing to take that step to have Seattle in that position as well?
I think the race for the AL is actually going to be really interesting this year. You're going to get the Yankees, who I do think after they get Garrett Cole back, they get Carlos Rodon back. Clark Schmidt's going to come back later in the season. They'll get some reinforcements. So I do think that the Yankees are still, in my opinion, going to be the team to beat here. The Blue Jays, of course, I guess, quote unquote, the team to beat, right? But the Mariners at this price, plus 550, I really like this one for a couple of reasons here. One is that when you look at them likely winning their division, and I personally think, as I mentioned, they're going to win it rather handily. That gives them, one of those buys, potentially the number 1 seed buy. And that's going to then have them play into, the lowest seed that wins in that first wild card round. Really going to give them a nice jump and a nice little bump there into the ALCS. So you get into those playoff series and you have these, this deep rotation of the Mariners, this deep bullpen of the Mariners. You have this lineup that I think is much better now that they've dropped the, near 40% strikeout rate that Eugenio Suarez would bring. The adding Brendan Donovan into the top of the lineup was a really solid bat that's going to battle in every count. I like what they've done with this team. And of course, like I said, that pitching returning is huge. So I think they can lock games down. I think that they can pitch, through any series, but especially those 3-game series. You need 3 wins. I think that they just kind of go right through that. And of course, 7-game series, man, that's going to be a tough team to beat, tough rotation to get on top of.
Amags likes the Mariners so much that he's actually wearing Mariners colors. And oh, by the way, so am I. So I guess we're all in on the Mariners. Talk to me about the NL real quick. We talked about this on the Early Edge Morning Show a couple of days ago. In terms of winning the NL, I mean, this is a crazy number. You normally see this, to win a division, not to win an entire league. Dodgers are plus 130. Is that where we're headed, Amags?
Yeah, Dodgers plus 130. I got to say, I'm actually a little bit happy to see the plus 130 and the not plus 110 or, as I do see it going down. Look, the Dodgers are going to be the team to beat. Very similar angle here to Seattle, where I think they're kind of a shoe-in for that number one seed there to get that bye. And of course, then face whatever the lowest seed would be, 4 or 5, coming out of that wild card round. Look, I get that if you don't want to bet the plus 130 and you're thinking, oh, it's, too much of too early in the year to bet such a short price, right? But they could really have like 6 or 7 major injuries and still win like 93 games again. It's, they had the injury bug last year. They still were right in the thick of things. And in terms of, going into the mid 90s for wins. But when you look at them not getting that number 1 bye last year, I think that that's something they definitely get this year. And so look, plus 130, you can bet it, but how about just to make the NLCS? We talked about this earlier in the week. Just the Dodgers to make the NLCS is out there at minus 170. They don't even need to win it. So really, you're just taking minus 170 if you believe, like I do, that they're going to have that strong first round bye to then face whatever the lowest seed would be. You're going to be looking at basically just a minus 170 price for them to win that NLDS to get to the NLCS. Again, they don't need to win the NLCS. Minus 170 just to make it. I really think there's some value on that number. And look, again, if you think it's too short of a price, maybe find something else to parlay with that, another future that you like in a different sport. Because I do think, we cashed it last year, and even at this price, it's something to take. This team is way too good.
It's crazy, but it does seem like value. You mentioned it. They could have so many injuries pile up and still potentially win in the mid 90s. I do want to mention that Matt Snyder, who you'll see on the show in days to come, as a sneaky, maybe longer shot in the NL, likes his Chicago Cubs at plus 950. We saw that on that odds board courtesy of BetMGM. All right, Amags, before we get out of here, maybe spend, 60 seconds or less, if that's even possible, on an AL and an NL MVP candidate.
And real quick, of course, Sniper went with the Cubs, right? The homer pick.
I mean,
in there, he had to do that. But I actually do like that price near plus 1,000 that he mentioned for them to win. I think they'll be good this year and win that division. But look, real quick on the MVPs, going to be very hard to take down Ohtani, especially in a year that I think he has a strong pitching campaign. We kind of saw that towards the end of last year where he was getting back on the mound. He was looking really good, honestly. I think he has a strong campaign this year. And you have, of course, those other big arms that are kind of going to help him not have to go out there and labor every 5th day to carry the rotation. You have Yamamoto, you have Glasnow, you have Snell, you have a lot of other pieces to help take the weight off. So I think the innings he does pitch are going to be very good. And of course, with the bat, adding that in, very tough to take him down. So I think the price on Ohtani right now, minus 110 is still out there. I actually like that number to win the MVP, put some down on it myself. But if you want a longer shot, maybe 80-1, Matt Olson. You've seen him hit 50 home runs. You take the Braves in a competitive NL East to the top of that division and win it. Hey, you get Acuna back. That lineup is looking a little bit better. So I wouldn't mind taking a shot on Olson at 80-1. But when you go to the AL, I think that's where it gets actually really interesting, because I'll take a shot on Gunnar Henderson. If he takes I would actually say your Baltimore Orioles, see if he takes those O's from last place to first in the division. Could you imagine that? If he were to have, a 7 or 8 WAR season, I think that really could give Judge a run for his money.
I love it. I love the short shots and I love the long shots, sprinkling in a lot of different places. And we're going to be doing that the entire lead up to opening day. Got some special shows on the SportsLine YouTube channel, but of course, special shows on this channel with Amags and with Matt Snyder as well, among others. Amags, thank you very much. We'll see you very soon.